Children are slaves of their parents. Woo! What an unpopular idea. Sometimes parents are better slave owners than others. Sometimes they are a lot worse. But parents own their children. Even the English language and lots of other languages that I've learned along the way say it. These are my children. Those are your children. These children are mine. They belong to me. And parents, to a very large degree, can do whatever they want to their children. Just like slave owners on plantations back in this country 200 years ago could do to their slaves. Yes, there were laws about what they could not do. You could not do X, Y, Z. That was against the law. But you could go very, very, very far in violating and abusing your slaves. And the law accepted it. Or even if it broke the law, people would look the other way. Well, it's the same thing with parents and their children. They can do all sorts of very inappropriate, unhealthy, violating, and traumatizing things to their children, and it's totally within the bounds of the law of the land. It's not criminal. In so many places, it's not criminal to hit your children, to slap your children, to shake your children, to punish your children by depriving them of all sorts of basic things for a time here or there, to humiliate your children, to yell at your children, to get your children to witness awful, awful, awful things, even to do all sorts of perverse things to your children, to tell your children perverse stories, to show your children perverse things. Often this is considered perfectly acceptable and healthy and normal, and lots of other people and even the law will defend it. Now, in certain ways, if you step over the line, then maybe it will be criminal in certain ways, and if you hit your kid too much in this way, it's considered criminal, or if you hit them on this part of the body, it will be criminal. But if you hit them in this part of the body, it won't, or if you hit them with this object, it won't be criminal, but in this way it will. A lot of these rules are pretty much arbitrary. But then there's all sorts of other sexual violations even that are considered perfectly legal. Think of all the little boys, myself included, who were genitally circumcised on the day of our birth. In my case, without even anesthesia, with total parental approval. My parents said, circumcise him, cut the tip of his penis off, perfectly acceptable. No consequences for me, nothing that I can do to make that right. Can't grow it back, can't punish anyone. But then, yes, there are some parents who do better in their responsibilities with their children, who are more kind, more nurturing, more unconditional in their loving, offer them better opportunities, more enrichment. I was going to say a happier home life, but a happier home life often is kind of a screwed up thing, because sometimes I've seen it, many times I've seen it, where parents seem to have a very happy marriage, but the happiness really is based on them not challenging each other to grow. They're not looking at their history. They're not developing as people. They're not very connected to who they are. Their happiness really is being very split off from what they have buried inside of them. So the children are raised in a so-called happy home, but under the surface there's a lot of brewing, fulminating, historical misery. And this spills out onto the children. And often that is the job, that is the labor of the child. That is the reason the child exists for the parent at the deep psychological level. They can be a recipient for their unconscious material. They can be a powerless person onto whom this now all-powerful parent, who perhaps felt powerless their whole life until suddenly they had complete control and ownership over the existence of another, this parent now can split off and project their unconscious material, their repressed pain and anger and sadness and rage and fury and betrayal and longing, their love needs. They can project all of this onto their child. And the child, in their desperate urge to be loved and be seen and be held, will do anything to try to adjust themselves to be this perfect being that their parent, their owner, wants, so they can get love. And finally, this parent, in so many cases, in their relationship with this fully dependent being, their child, this parent now feels loved. And they even say it. They have the audacity to say it, because I've heard it 1,000 times. The parent says, "Now I know what love is. This child loves me. My baby loves me more than anyone has ever loved me before in this existence." If you want to know what love is, you have to become a parent. You have to have a child. I've heard people say this many, many times, mothers and fathers. And they don't realize, because they haven't explored themselves. They haven't explored the depths of their painful childhood histories. They haven't gone through the grieving process, the feeling the hell that they went through and resolving it. They don't realize that this baby, this young child, doesn't love them at all. This child is just giving them attention and focus and attunement in order to receive love, to receive whatever crumbs of love and goodness and caring this parent can sum up. Babies don't love their parents. Babies don't love anything. Actually, babies do. Babies love themselves. They are desperately selfish and desperately will do anything to try to get this parent, this owner, this authority with complete power to give them what they need so that they can grow. And for adults who have been so improperly loved in their childhoods, and because of their own lack of internal development, have never figured out how to love themselves. They haven't figured out how to parent themselves, parenting themselves, loving themselves, being the same thing, because they haven't figured this out. They're so confused on what love is that they actually think that their little slave, their little dependent child whom they own, they think this being loves them. And I wonder, I've never talked to anyone who in the legal sense is a slave owner. In my travels, I've probably seen slaves. But let me say, if I'd gone back 200-300 years in time, if I'd talked to a Thomas Jefferson who wrote "All men are created equal," I think he had something like 600 people that he owned. One of them he even was having sex with regularly, starting when she was, 14 years old, 15 years old? Or I'd talk to a George Washington or a Martha Washington who owned slaves. I mean, how many of our American past presidents owned slaves? Lots of them. I think even Ulysses S. Grant owned a slave. I don't think Lincoln did, but Andrew Jackson owned a ton of them. What if I had asked them, really gotten to know them, do you love some of your slaves? I bet some of those slave owners would have said, like some parents say, yes. Yeah, I do love some of my slaves. I really love them. And I bet the slaves, the legal black African slaves that they would have loved, would have been the ones who were so accommodating to them that they put up no more fight, that they put up no more resistance, that they had no more rebellion, that they didn't confront them, that they were so broken or hidden away on the inside, or perhaps even duplicitous in self-protection, that they in their desperate need to survive in this totally screwed up, power imbalanced relationship, fooled their slave owners into thinking they were nurturing them. And I think it's the same way with children. When the children have so deeply, to the best degree, that this is the kind of child that gets the parent to love the child best and to think that this child loves them the most. The children that get the most love for their parents are the ones that are the most shut down, the most split off, the least confrontational, the most accommodating, the most pleasant, the most like the parent, the ones who meet the parent's displaced and projected image, the ones who accept the parent's projections, who identify with everything that the parent is projecting onto them. The ones that don't say, fuck you, you suck, you're a horrible parent, you're terrible, you've ruined my life. I think of my own life, my own history. I was a child who unconsciously, out of a desperate need to survive as a slave in my childhood family system, became a perfect child in some ways to my parents. And this was the part of me that they loved so much. I made them happy, I made them proud, I was good, I did great in school, I looked the part, I talked smart, I did X, Y, Z, I applied to college, I went to fancy college, my dad was proud of me, my mom was proud of me. But it was because I was so split off from myself, so lost. I had, in a way, so sold myself out to them and their needs, their unconscious, unresolved childhood needs, that, well, I was a good slave. And yet it didn't last because it was killing me. I hated myself. Civil war was looming on the horizon of my adulthood. Rebellion was looming on the horizon of my adulthood. I was going to break away. I was going to fight. And as I started becoming independent, my feelings started coming up. My rage at them, my memories of what they had done to me and how they had misused me and manipulated me and harmed me and lied to me and violated me and traumatized me in so many different ways. And I started speaking about it. And I started rebelling. But rebelling makes it sound like I was doing something bad. No, I was fighting for ownership of myself. I was fighting to connect with who I really was. I was fighting to embody myself. I was breaking out of their system of owning me and saying, not only do you not own me, you never owned me. I was never your property. This was a lie. You took advantage of me. You took advantage of me because you never did your own healing. You used me as a distraction. You used me as an addiction. You used me as a dumping ground for your unconscious, unresolved feelings. You misused me. And I don't owe you anything, because that was another thing. That's another way I was raised to feel, that somehow in the craziness of all this power imbalance, somehow I was raised to believe that I still owed them something. Well, they'd brought me into this world and they paid for my food, therefore I owe them. Well, did the young girl who Thomas Jefferson was raping, did she owe him because he gave her food? It's crazy. No. It was the other way around. He owed her. He owed all of his slaves, just like parents owe their children. Society has it backwards. The laws have it backwards. And so I broke away from my family at great cost to myself. Disinheritance, hatred, rage, the whole family system sided with itself against me. I was a renegade. I had rebelled. I was immature. The more I became mature, the more they said he's becoming less mature. I mean, it was really crazy making. The kind of stuff that I can understand why people who attempt to go through this sometimes go crazy. I actually went a little bit crazy at various points under the family pressure of breaking out of my slavery, under the societal pressure of being told by everyone, including mental health professionals, experts, legal experts, medical experts in psychology who said, oh, you should forgive, and they didn't know what they were doing, and they did the best they could, and your mother was a good enough mother, and Winnicott says, and your father was a good enough father, and all parents are good enough, and they're good enough, and you have to look at their good sides, and you're only looking at, I mean, these people sucked. They were terrible. They were not mental health professionals and religious leaders and whole religions that sided with my parents against me. Well, guess what? I mean, doesn't the Bible talk about slavery? I mean, I'm not any big expert on this. I'm not into any of these religions, but I seem to have heard along the way that St. Paul, one of the founders of Christianity, said, slaves, obey your masters. Didn't he say that? And Moses, one of the 10 Commandments, honor your parents. Same thing. Be a good little slave. Child, obey your parents. Listen to them, forgive them, have gratitude for them. And other religions saying, you chose your parents. Out of the ether of existence, when you were floating around, before you were even a sperm or an egg, you chose to enter your mother's womb, and you chose this to be your mother and your father. Even though your parents, I've heard, I mean, as a therapist, I've heard no few number of people who have been raped by their parents, literally, physiologically, physically, sexually raped, and then to be told that their religion says that they chose their parents. Who in their right mind would choose to be raised in a family, born into a family where their parents rape them? So this is the insanity of our world. And so when I come here and I say, parents are slave owners and children are their slaves, and sometimes parents are better slave owners and sometimes parents are worse slave owners, I stand by what I say.